Bro, hello, bro.
So now the chapter that we are going to see is kinetic theory of gases.
which is almost similar to the gaseous state that you have learned in your chemistry. Okay? Which is something similar. I'll not say exactly the same, something similar to it. So what we are going to see in this kinetic theory of gases is, so you know the different laws that are there in gaseous state, right? What are all the different laws that you people know? Different laws of gases. You would have heard of Boyle's law. So what does Boyle's law state? At constant temperature, can we say volume is inversely proportional to pressure? That is, it states PV is equal to constant. We know this fact, right? Similarly, you have another law which is called as Charles' law. So what does Charles' law state? If the pressure remains constant for a given volume, for a given mass of gas, then we can say volume is directly proportional to temperature. That's what Charles' law speaks about, right? Then you have a law called as Gay-Lussac's law. So what does this law state? Guys, I assume you know all these things. So what is the thing that is left out for an ideal equation to be formed? Ideal gas equation to be formed. P into V is there. V is directly proportional to T is there. So at a constant volume, we can say pressure is directly proportional to temperature. So if you combine all these three, then we get an equation called as ideal gas equation. And what does it state, guys? PV is equal to N into R into T, where P stands for pressure, V stands for volume, N stands for number of moles, R stands for universal gas constant, and T stands for absolute temperature. And what is the value of R? It is 8.31 joule per mole per Kelvin. Right? I hope you know all these things. Right?
Yes, sir.
So the thing that you're going to learn extra in your physics is, see, you're talking about a gas and its pressure, right? So now my question is, what does basically pressure with respect to a fluid mean? Pressure is nothing but the thrust per unit area. So when I talk about thrust, okay, when I talk about thrust, what comes to your mind? Thrust is nothing but force. It is a force which is in a particular direction. Now my question is, according to Newton's second law, how do we define forces? Right? So according to Newton's second law, the force is defined as the rate of change of linear momentum. That is delta P divided by delta T. Now comes an important question. If somebody asks you, how do you calculate? If you have to calculate the pressure exerted by an ideal gas in a container, how are we going to calculate it? Okay, that is what is going to be taken into consideration. So the point that we are going to see is, see, it's a big derivation. There is the expression. There is the value of the pressure exerted by the gas on the walls of the container, but let's look into the physics behind it. Are you guys clear with this point? So if someone asks you if I ask you what does a pressure mean, pressure is nothing but the force per unit area. But what does force mean? Force is rate of change of linear momentum. Okay, so to extract the expression for pressure, there are certain postulates with respect to the kinetic theory of gases. These are all the postulates, these are all the assumptions that we are going to, or these are all the statements I can say. Okay, so they say a gas consists of very large number of molecules each one is assumed to be perfectly identical elastic sphere. That is the first point. So what happens here is each gas molecule is assumed to be a perfectly elastic sphere. Second, the molecules of a gas are in the state of continuous and random motion. They move in all directions with all possible velocities. Generally, we call this as what kind of a moment? So it's called as Brownian moment. I hope you would have heard this word. Okay. The third, the size of each molecule is very, very small compared to the distance of separation between them. Hence, the volume occupied by each molecule is negligible in comparison to the total volume occupied by the gas. That is, if you take a container, in this container, if you have gas, that gas is made up of small molecules, right? However, those molecules assumed according to the first point, they are perfectly identical elastic spheres. Second, all these molecules have random motion. Third, the size of the molecule is very small compared to the size of compared to the volume of the gas itself. Okay. Fourth, there is no force of attraction or repulsion between the molecules and the walls of the container. Means there is no electrostatic force acting. Electrostatic force means attraction or repulsion due to the charges of the molecules. That is not existing. Fifth, the collisions of the molecules among themselves and with the walls of the container are assumed to be perfectly elastic. Just a minute, okay? Okay, the collisions of the molecules among themselves and with the walls of the container are perfectly elastic. Therefore, what will happen is the momentum and kinetic energy of the molecules are conserved during the collisions. Okay, they are conserved during the collisions. Next, when you take a molecule moves along. A molecule moves along a straight line between two successive collisions, and the average distance traveled between the two successive collisions is called the mean free path of the molecules. Okay, so I hope you're able to understand all the postulates. Fifth point is very important. Okay, the collisions of the molecule among themselves and the walls of the container are perfectly elastic. Therefore, momentum and kinetic energy of the molecules are conserved during collisions. So this is an important point, because if you recollect the concept of elastic collision, what are all the conserved factors in it? Linear momentum is conserved and kinetic energy is conserved. Next, when you consider a molecule, the molecule moves along a straight line between two successive collisions, and the average distance traveled by the molecule between two successive collisions, okay, the average distance traveled by the molecule between two successive collisions is called as the mean free path of the molecules. Okay, this word is important, have it in your mind. Next, the collisions are almost instantaneous, and the time of collision of two molecules is negligible as compared to the time interval between two successive collisions. So these are all the assumptions we are going to take into consideration for deriving the pressure. Am I clear till this point?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now listen. So you need to know what is an Avogadro number. I hope everybody knows this. Avogadro number is defined as the number of molecules present in 1 mole of the substance. It is constant for all the substances and its value is 6.023 into 10 power 23. 6.023 into 10 power 23. Okay. Next is pressure exerted by a gas. This is the derivation and I want everybody to concentrate. Okay. See, when we talk about the molecules of a gas, they are in the state of random motion. Due to the random motion, what will happen is they continuously collide against each other and the walls of the container. They collide continuously against each other and the walls of the container. And during each collision, what will happen is momentum is transferred. You know the fact that when two objects come in contact with each other, there is an exchange of momentum that is going to take place. So momentum is transferred to the walls of the container, as a result of which there will be a pressure that is exerted on the walls of the container. You are able to see a wall here. So if the container is assumed to be in a cubical shape, when a molecule goes and hits the surface, okay, it is experiencing collision. And what kind of a collision is it experiencing?
Elastic, sir.
Elastic. So in the case of an elastic collision, what will happen? In the case of an elastic collision, what will happen? When there is an elastic collision taking place between a molecule and the wall, okay, and a rigid wall. Recollect the concept. If the object travels with the speed u and if it has mass m, when it is hitting the wall, it will rebound with the same velocity. Okay, it will rebound with the same velocity. So, now listen. So, due to this, what will happen is there will be a change in momentum taking place. Can you tell me what is the change in momentum that is taking place? Delta B is equal to m into u will be in the rightward direction and minus m into u will be in the leftward direction. So change in momentum will be minus mu, that is minus 2 mu. Now listen. So this is the change in momentum. So have this in your mind. The change in momentum per unit time will give us what? I've asked a basic question. The change in momentum per unit time will give us what? It will give us force. If you divide this force with the area, what is it going to give us? Give us the pressure. Right? That's what we need to derive. So how? So if the question is like this, the question is how does a gas exert pressure on the walls of the container? Through what process is it exhibiting?
So what was the question?
If I say gas is exerting pressure, then the gas is exerting pressure on the walls of the container through what means?
Through collision, sir.
Elastic collisions. Okay, that is what you need to have understand. So that is why the first 2 points are very important. Listen, the molecules are in random state of motion, due to which there is a collision against the walls of the container. During collision, what is happening? There is a momentum transfer taking place of how much value? Minus 2 mu. There is a momentum that is transferred to the walls of the container. Then the pressure exerted by the gas is due to whom? Due to the continuous collision of the molecules against the walls of the container. Due to this continuous collision, what will happen? The walls experience a continuous force because 2mu divided by delta t is the force that they are trying to talk about, which is equal to the total momentum imparted to the walls per second. Are you able to understand? So the force experienced per unit area of the walls of the container determines the pressure exerted by the gas. For this, the derivation is starting from here. For this, what we need to understand is, so this is the whole theory. Tell me one thing, are you clear with this or not? So what are all the steps that are taking place? Collision, due to collision, change in momentum. Due to change in momentum, it is going to be force. Due to force, it is going to be pressure. Okay, now listen. Consider a cubic container of side L containing n molecules of perfect gas. Perfect gas means ideal gas, moving with velocities c1, c2, c3, so on till cn. Okay, this y is not there. So generally here the speeds that are taken are c1, c2, so on. Right? So what did they do? They considered a cubical structure. In this cubical structure, there are molecules which are having velocities c1, c2, so on till cn. If you see the value, the way the c1 is possessing, c1 will be like this, which can be resolved into three components: u1, v1, and w1. Okay, u1, v1, and w1. Next. So the figure beside shows the molecule with velocity c1 will have velocities u1, v1, and w1 as components along the x, y, and z components respectively. Components means you know what they are. It is resolved parts, right? Similarly, u2, v2, and w2 will be the velocity of the second molecule, and so on. If there are n molecules, all those n molecules will have n velocities. Those n velocities can be resolved into how many components? So each velocity can be resolved into three components. So those n values can be resolved into 3n components. Okay. So let a molecule P having the velocity c1 collide against the wall marked 1, which is BCFG. Okay. Which is perpendicular to the x-axis. So in this case, what will happen is only the x component of the velocity of the molecule is relevant to the wall one. That is what will happen if the wall is like this. Then Vx is like this. The x component of the velocity after hitting the wall is going to change. Okay. So only the x component of the velocity of the molecule is relevant for the wall one. So here what will happen is the momentum of the molecule before collision is mu1. u1 is the velocity in the x direction. Remember, okay? Now tell me one thing, guys. When the molecule is moving to the right towards the wall, mu1 will be the initial momentum of the molecule. After collision, since the collision is elastic, after collision, what will be its final momentum?
Minus 2mu1.
Minus mu1. Final momentum is minus mu1, right? You are telling about change in momentum.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say is, if suppose you throw a ball against the wall, if the ball is traveling with the speed u and it has mass m, its momentum before hitting the wall will be m into u. It's a similar example of throwing a ball exactly against the wall. If the collision is perfectly elastic, the ball will rebound with the same momentum mu. That is what I'm trying to say. Okay. So mu1, here it is minus mu1. Okay. So it is minus 2mu1. So during each successive collision on phase 1, the molecule must travel a distance of how much value? See, what should happen is, listen, I'll explain. I'll switch on the video and explain. Please think in this way. also. I hope you are able to see me. Yes. Listen, okay. See, suppose these are the two walls of the container. Okay. On the cubical side, this is phase 1 and this is phase 2. In between, what is there? There is a molecule. This molecule is going and hitting this wall with what momentum? Mu. And it is rebounding with the same momentum mu because of what reason? Because of see, it is hitting with speed mu. It is rebounding with the same speed mu. Okay. Then, how much is the so why is it happening? Due to what?
Elastic.
Because it's elastic collision.
Because it's elastic. Perfect. Okay. Now, once it has hit the wall, let's say when it is hitting the wall, it is t is equal to 0 seconds. Okay. Now, for the same molecule, repeating the question, for the same molecule to hit the same point, how much time is it going to take? For the successive collision to take place. So when the let's say it's a ball. When the ball is hitting this wall for the first time, remember there is another ball on the other side. So after hitting, what is happening to it? It is rebounding and it is going and hitting the other ball, and again it will come back and hit it for the second time. Again, what will happen? It will go to the opposite ball, again come and hit this for the third time. So between the first and the second is called as a successive. Between second and third is called as a successive. So before it experiences the successive collision, how much distance is it supposed to travel? So let's say this is t is equal to 0. From here to travel to this point, the side of the cube is L. How much distance is it supposed to travel in this direction? This is phase 2. T is equal to 0. Hitting the second wall at a distance of how much value, guys? I'm asking a simple question. I'm telling the side of the cube is L. So what will be the distance between two walls?
L, sir.
So after hitting, it travels a distance L. After hitting this wall, it will again travel a distance of L. So between two successive collisions on the same wall, how much is the total distance it is traveling?
2L, sir.
Okay. So that is what they're asking. What is the time between two successive collisions? The answer is 2L. And with what velocity is it traveling along x direction? Along x direction, its velocity is how much?
mu1, sir.
Yes, it is u1. So listen to this. During each successive collision on phase 1, the molecule must travel a distance of 2L from phase 1 to phase 2 and back to phase 1. Accepted? So the time interval existing between two successive collisions is distance by speed. So what is the total distance traveled by it? It is 2L divided by the speed is u1. Any doubt, guys? The derivation is almost over.
No doubts.
So what has happened is you calculated the change in momentum of how much it is minus 2 mu1. You calculated the time between two successive collision, that is 2L divided by u1. Now what is our work? Calculate the force. So divide both delta P by delta T, ignoring the minus sign. What is going to happen? Okay, I'll take the minus sign also. 2 mu1 divided by 2L divided by u1. 2 and 2 will get cancelled. It is mu1 square divided by L with a minus sign. That's what we are calling it as rate of change of momentum, which is nothing but the force exerted on the molecule. So the force exerted on the molecule is minus m1 u1 square by L. So what will be the force exerted by the molecule? Guys, I'm asking a simple question. Let's say you're trying to push a wall. You're standing against the wall, you're trying to push it. If the force applied by you on the wall is F1, what will be the force exerted by the wall on you?
Minus F1, sir.
The same logic. If the force exerted on the molecule, who is exerting the force on the molecule? It is the wall of the container. Is minus m1 u1 squared by L. Then what will be the force exerted by you on the wall? It will be plus m1 u1 squared by L. Am I clear? So
Yes,
this
sir.
is the force exerted by one molecule in which direction? In the x direction. So what will be the force exerted by n molecules that are present? It will be m1 u1 square by L, m1 u2 square by L, m1 u1 square by L. Why I wrote m1 is because mass of each molecule is same, because it is assumed to be identical spheres. Correct? So what will be the pressure exerted by all these molecules in the x direction? That will be Fx divided by A. What is Fx? M divided by L into u1 square plus u2 square plus so on till un square. Correct? So this is the force. The whole divided by area is L square. So what will be the pressure? It will be m divided by L cube into u1 square plus u2 square plus so on till un square. Guys, any doubt till this point? This is a very, very important derivation. Please make a note of it.
So I have a doubt.
Tell me.
So what does that X stand for in f of x, sir? Fx.
F of x is force along x direction. Because u1, u2 are all the velocities along x direction. So x stands for x direction. See, though pressure is not a vector quantity, here we are trying, since we are taking only the force along x direction, we are saying that is a pressure in that particular direction.
Okay, sir.
Got it?
Yes.
Okay. So pressure exerted along x direction will be m by L cube into sum of all the squares of the velocities in x direction by each molecule. Then what will be the pressure in y direction? You tell me. The same m by L cube into individual velocities in y direction is taken as v1, v2. So v1 square plus v2 square plus so on till vn square. Correct? Similarly, the velocities along z direction are taken as w1, w2. So the pressure along z direction will be m by L cube into w1 square plus so on till wn square. Is there any doubt in this?
No doubts.
Okay. Now comes an important point. Concentrate. Irrespective of the direction, the pressure exerted by the gas is going to be same on all walls of the container logically. So if that is the case, pressure along x is equal to pressure along y is equal to pressure along z. Then what is the average power? Average power is nothing but sum of all, not power, average pressure. Px plus Py plus Pz the whole divided by 3. Correct? Because 3 directions, sum of the pressure in all directions divided by the number of directions. Okay. Now listen. Now listen. So P is equal to Px plus Py plus Pz the whole divided by 3. So what will be the total pressure? It will be 1 by 3 into m by L cube. See, m by L cube is common in everything. 1 by 3 came from the average into Px is u1 square plus u2 square plus so on till un square. Similarly, Py is v1 square plus v2 square plus so on till vn square. Similarly, Pz will give you all these things. Now what we are going to do is look at the rearrangement that is going to happen. I'm going to collect all the terms with initial velocity, with the velocities in particular direction. u1 square plus v square plus w1 square. plus, that is u1 square plus v1 square plus w1 square plus u2 square plus v2 square plus w2 square plus so on, un square plus vn square plus wn square. Okay, how much is this value? That is what we need to understand. Now we will go back to the basic. See, when this C1 is resolved into three components, observe, can I write C1 is equal to U1 I cap plus V1 J cap plus W1 K cap? This is the C1 vector. Now, what is the value of magnitude of it? That will be root of U1 square plus V1 square plus W1 square. So what is C square? U1 square plus V1 square plus W1 square. Okay, so we have U1 square plus V1 square plus W1 square, right? It can be replaced with C1 square. That's the important point here. Okay, so U1 square plus V1 square plus W1 square is C1 square. U2 square plus V2 square plus W2 square is C2 square. Okay, like this, the last value is Cn square, where C1, C2, C3, so on till Cn are the velocities of the individual molecules. Correct, Ada? Are you guys making a note of this point? Now listen. So pressure, can I write it as 1 by 3 into m divided by L cube into C1 square plus C2 square plus so on till Cn square. Okay. Now what we will do is, you will divide it with the number of molecules and multiply it with the number of molecules. Okay. So pressure will be how much? 1 divided by 3 into m into n divided by L cube is nothing but the volume of the container into this value is there, right? What is this actually? Is it not the average of squares? Right. So I will call this as C square, where C is nothing but square root of C1 square plus C2 square plus so on till Cn square, the whole divided by n. And this has a very, very important name, which is called as root mean square value, because it is the square root of the mean of the squares. Okay, this is a very, very important term.
Sir,
Tell me.
could you explain again from the C part, sir? That is when you take C1, C2.
Where this step?
Yes, sir. When you substitute U1, V1, W1 from there.
See, U1 square plus V1 square plus W1 square is nothing but C1 square. I hope you understood that point, why it is so. Because C1 vector is U1 I cap plus V1 J cap plus W1 K cap. Then magnitude of C will be how much? Root of U1 square plus V1 square plus W1 square. Then C square will be equal to U1 square plus V1 square plus W1 square. I hope this point is clear. If you ask me where did I get this concept from, it is from the first diagram that we saw, this part. Okay. Now comes an important question. So if I write U1 square plus V1 square plus W1 square as C1 square, then U2 square plus V2 square plus W2 square is nothing but C2 square plus so on till U1 square plus Vn square plus Wn square is nothing but Cn square. Correct? Now what I can do is, if I divide this whole expression with n, okay, where n stands here, n doesn't stand for number of moles, n stands for the number of particles. Then numerator also I'm multiplying with n. Okay. Is that point clear?
Here, n is number of particles, sir.
Yeah, number of particles in this context. Generally, it should have been capital N. Okay. But I wrote it as small n. Just a minute, guys. I'm getting a call. Listen, guys. So 1 by 3 into m divided by L cube into what is it we have? C1 square plus C2 square plus so on till Cn square. If you divide it with n and multiply it with n, then this is nothing but an average value, or it is mean value. Now question is, it is a mean of whom? It is a mean of whom?
Mean of the squares, sir.
It is the mean of the squares, right? So we call it as ms. Ms means mean square. So if I call that value as c square is equal to, means I'm replacing this whole expression of c1 square plus c2 square plus 1 till cn square with a term called as c square. That point is clear. Then what will be the value of c? C will be under root of this value. So under root means it is square root. Root of whom? It is a root of mean square. So that value is what is called as RMS. R stands for root, M stands for mean, S stands for square. Means you're taking the square average of the square values and taking the square root of it. Is the point clear? Rohan?
Clear, sir.
Okay. So that's what I meant by RMS value. Have a note of that point because all the further derivation that we are going to do is based on that only. It's all about manipulation. This chapter has not, this is the only biggest derivation. And it is toughest also. If you don't understand this, other parts are tough. Shall I move on?
So, sir, that means the final expression is 1 by 3 mn L cube into c
1 by
square.
3 m into n divided by v. V stands for the volume, c square. Okay, m is mass of each particle, n is the number of particles, c is the RMS value. Okay, write it down. Then what we will be doing in the further discussion is, we will only be manipulating this expression and writing in different forms. That's what we are going to do. Okay, now let's see. Shall I move on?
Yes.
Now see. Now the question is, if I have to derive an expression for the relation between the pressure exerted by the gas, means pressure exerted by the gas on the walls of the container, to the average kinetic energy of translation per unit volume of the gas, means if I need to calculate the kinetic energy per unit volume. Now, how do I manipulate it? That's the question. Okay. So pressure exerted by unit volume of gas. See, pressure exerted is 1 by 3 mnc square the whole divided by V. If V is equal to 1, then we call it as unit volume. So if I take this and substitute it here, P will be equal to 1 by 3 mnc square. Right? So where m into n will give you what? Okay, I will write it like this. M into n will give you the total mass. Correct?
Yes.
Will give you the total mass. I'll do something different from the one which is given in the book so that you will understand it better. The total mass divided by volume will give you what? Mass by volume will give you what? density. So can I say P is equal to 1 by 3 rho C square, where rho is the density of the gas and C is the RMS value. I hope that point is clear. So let this be equation number 1. Now, what can I call the average kinetic energy per unit volume of the gas as? Kinetic energy of the gas is half into Mn into C square. Why I'm writing C square is because it's average kinetic energy. Don't forget, it is average kinetic energy. It is not the kinetic energy of individual particles. Highly impossible to calculate. Divided by the volume. Am I clear? Again, what does this Mn by C represent?
Density, sir.
Again, it is density. It is half rho C square. So if I call the average kinetic energy per unit volume as capital E is half rho C square. Pressure is 1 by 3 rho C square. So from 1 and 2, what can I do is P divided by E is equal to 2 divided by 3. So P is equal to 2 by 3 times E. So that will be the relation between whom? Between the pressure exerted by the gas and the, don't forget this word, mean. Mean means average. Average kinetic energy of translation per unit volume of the gas. Translation means they are moving in a straight line path. They are not rotating. Clear, guys?
So this is the relationship between pressure and energy, sir.
It is the relation between pressure exerted by the gas, not pressure experienced by gas. Pressure and average kinetic energy. It is not energy. Don't call it, just because you see word E, it is not energy. It is average kinetic energy per watt, per unit volume. So average kinetic energy per unit volume is what I called it as E. Puridana, you're able to understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now see.
1 minute, could you show the derivation, sir?
Sure. Okay. Shall I move on?
Yes, sir.
Now see. Average kinetic energy per molecule of the gas. Now what we are going to do is we are going to calculate the average kinetic energy per molecule of the gas in terms of temperature. Okay. In terms of temperature. So we know that P is equal to 1 by 3 rho C square. There is a known factor. So how can you write this rho as 1 by 3 into total mass divided by total volume into C square? Correct? Where capital M is nothing but what? Mass of each gas molecule multiplied with the total number of gas molecules. So if I rearrange the equation, will I get P into V is equal to 1 by 3 mc square? Let this be equation number 1. Similarly, if I take 1 mole of a gas, then PV will be equal to RT when N is equal to 1. Let this be 2. From 1 and 2, what can I conclude? R into 3 is equal to 1 by 3 into mc square. Correct, Ada? So, if I take 3 to the other side, 3 times RC is equal to mc square. Now tell me one thing, guys. M into C square, is it not double the kinetic energy? Total mass into RMS value square, is it not double the value of average kinetic energy? So if I need the average kinetic energy, I need to divide it with 2. Left hand side also, I will divide it with 2. Am I clear? Does this make sense? So, what does this mc square divided by 2 represent with respect to a gas? This is the average kinetic energy. So the average kinetic energy of a gas molecule is always given by the formula 3 by 2 times R into T, and this is a very, very standard expression. Okay. Now see. Now see. When you consider 1 mole of a gas, okay, it contains how many number of atoms in it? 1 mole of a gas contains how many atoms in it?
1023 10%.
It is Avogadro number. So can I say half into, see, again I'm taking this expression. I'm marking it with red C. Half into mc square is equal to 3 by 2 into R into T. Half into, how can I write the value of capital M as? Capital M can be written as mass of each particle into the number of particles present in that gas. Here, how much did you consider? You considered 1 mole. So 1 mole contains Avogadro number of particles into C square is equal to 3 by 2 into R into T. Now, can I call this as half small m into C square is equal to 3 by 2 into R divided by Na into T? Correct? This R divided by Na has a special name called as Boltzmann constant, because R is also a number and Na is also a fixed number. So 1 by 3 mc square is equal to 3 by 2 times Kb into T, where Kb stands for the Boltzmann constant, and its value is given by 1.38 into 10 power minus 23 joule per Kelvin. Okay. Now, an important question that I'm going to ask you is, here also you had half mc square. Where is it? Here also you had half mc square. Here also you have half mc square. What is the difference between the first one and the second one?
So what's the question?
See, you're able to see half mc square in two places, right? Here also you're able to see. At the bottom also you're able to see. So I mark them as 1 and 2. So in the one, half mc square is right hand side is 3 by 2 times RT. Whereas in the second, for half mc square, it is 3 by 2 into Kb into T. What is the difference? It's very simple, isn't it? First one is only average kinetic energy. Write it down. First one is average kinetic energy. Whereas second one is not average kinetic energy, it is average kinetic energy per molecule. Average kinetic energy per molecule is what is 3 by 2 into Kb into T. Average kinetic energy of the total gas is 3 by 2 into R into T. Am I clear? And as
Could
I
you
told
repeat,
you,
sir?
see, first one, I'm talking about the first one. The first one is called as the average kinetic energy of the gas. Means all the molecules are taken into consideration. That is why here the mass is mass of each particle into the total number of particles. So first one is average kinetic energy of the total gas. Whereas second one is what? It is the average kinetic energy per molecule, because, why I'm saying because is, here you take mass of only one particle. Okay, next time onwards, if I ask you, see, this will repeat in many places. If you want, you can go through this and see. there are many places this 3 by 2 kb into t will repeat. So you need to have a clarity of what they are trying to say. So next time onwards, if I ask you what is average kinetic energy, if I complete the statement like this, it is just 3 by 2 r into t. But if I put a question like this, what is the average kinetic energy per molecule? What will you say? It is 3 by 2 into kb into t, where kb stands for the Boltzmann constant. Am I clear? Yes or no? Okay. So with this, half of the chapter is over. The next part is about degrees of freedom, where I have to discuss about different types of motion. Then we have law of equipartition, and then certain derivation. With that, this chapter is over. Okay, it's only 4 more pages. So, if possible, we will have class tomorrow evening at the same time. I'll try to complete this chapter. With that, our syllabus will be over. I suggest you all to revise it. Okay. So that's all from my side. Any doubts?